and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Now, if you do enjoy this episode, we ask that you please like and subscribe below. My guest today, I met at an AMEG event, and I was instantly attracted to his friendliness and his energy for life. He's a financial advisor by profession, but is now focusing on Speaking Through Life, a motivational speaking initiative. Today, he's here to speak to us about moving outside your comfort zone and facing challenges head on. Adrian Fuller, welcome.
Tracy, thanks for the intro. Very well summed up. And thank you for the kind invitation on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm relatively new to Perth and finding networking as difficult as it usually is. So to get the invitation was really great. So thank you.
Of course, it's only a pleasure. I know what it's like. I've immigrated 4 times, and to start afresh every single time is very daunting. So it's great to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to our chat.
Thank you. Me too.
So, Adrian, walk us through. Give us a starting point where your journey started in terms of your financial advisory role.
Sure. Okay. Well, my wealth management business is very much a family business. Okay. It was started by my dad about 40, nearly 50 years ago in South Africa. Okay. So planning or wealth management was very much in the family's DNA. And when my sister finished school and went through Technicon, she got a marketing and sales diploma. She joined the family business. Okay. Myself, from school in South Africa, I went to the University of Pietermaritzburg, studied a BCom. And then, like most graduates did back then in South Africa, I left for London pretty much the day after graduation. Okay. Went to London. It was supposed to be for 2 years, but typically it stretched into 5. And during that time, I worked in the investment banking arena. I was with Goldman Sachs for a few years, etc. So straight away, not really by default, but I ended up in banking. I ended up in the financial markets. And then when I was nearing the end of my term in London, not that it was a jail term, but it was pretty tough going working for a very, very high pressure baptism of fire bank like Goldman Sachs. So anyway, towards the end of the 5-year period, my father actually flew over to London and he said, it's nice to see you, but let's let this visit double as an interview. I'd like to interview you for the family business. So I said, Dad, that's a bit formal. He said, well, you know what I'm like. Let's get it done properly. So he sat me down and he walked me through the opportunities that were available in the business. And I think he just thought it's a natural thing for me to join the business because he's an advisor. My sister's one. Now I must be one. So I said, great. I was very appreciative of his efforts and of the opportunity. So I moved back to South Africa, joined the family business, and my father identified our investment portfolio as the logical sort of starting point because that's where my industry had kind of been gained, or my experience had been gained in investment banking. So that's how that began. And I would like to say that it was more of a default thing, like I said earlier, than a natural vocation. And it's taken me, and I don't want to race ahead of what we're going to talk about, but it's taken me about 20 years to realize that as passionate as I am about wealth management and as fascinating as the financial markets are, etc., and as easy as I am able to maintain client relationships based on wealth management, there was a piece of me that was always wondering if this is actually for me. Like, is this an exact fit? It's the whole round peg into a square hole, or vice versa. So yeah, that's 20 years in the industry with a little niggle in the back of my mind as to, is there something else I should be doing, possibly in conjunction with this? So yeah, that's the answer to where the wealth management came from. I wasn't shoehorned into it, not at all, because I do find it interesting and it's been very good to me. The industry has been very, very good to me, and I think I've served it well. And I'm not talking past tense because I'm still doing that, and I'll probably do that for the rest of my career, because we've built up a very sustainable business. and I would never turn my back on it. It's a family business. It's my legacy. It might be the legacy to my kids one day. So yeah, so that's why I'm looking at something else to run alongside it, which is the Speaking Through Life initiative, which I'm sure we'll discuss a bit more.
Definitely. And Adrian, I'd love to know, you said that there was this niggle in the back of your mind. I guess, is it just a
Mm.
feeling that you had? Because I think a lot of us, and again, we're so conditioned by, the way society thinks we should move through I don't want to say food chain, but, you go to school, go to uni, then you go to work. Was there something like within you, that was there a feeling that you felt like you were meant for so much more?
Um, I think the expression "so much more," I wouldn't. I would use that, but I wouldn't put too much weight on it because, as I said, the industry has been very good to me, and
Yeah.
and been great.
Mm.
It ticks a lot of boxes, and it's been fulfilling. But
Yeah.
yes, the niggle and the niggle is real. It always has been. At school, I really enjoyed creative writing. I loved writing essays. I mean, I wasn't like unbelievably good at essays. I didn't get top marks, but it was something that I really enjoyed. And I had a specific writing style and a specific way that I like to construct stories. So anyway, it was quite interesting. When I was finishing school, I was in the final year of school. My mother said to me, "Look, you're obviously a little bit unsure of what you want to do at university." I'd already, 3 years before finishing school, you have to select your final subjects, and I
Yeah.
excluded science. So science, anything scientific, engineering, that was off the table. So now I had to concentrate
Mm.
on either the arts or commerce or something like that. But interestingly, my mother recognized the fact that I was a little unsure, even though I removed the sciences and I couldn't go there anymore. She said, "We need to get you assessed by someone." So she took me down to the university, and we engaged the services of HSRC, the Human Science Research Council. Okay, and they run a whole lot of sort of aptitude tests, etc., and they spit out some results. And I don't even know if I really read those results because, again, I was at school. I was just what my parents said I must do. I went down. My mother drove me down. I did the test, got out and said, "Okay, I've done that. Whatever they say is whatever they say." And I
Yeah, I think we
entered
all did
into a,
that.
a bachelor.
Yeah.
This is funny. It was only years later. It was about 6 years ago. My mother actually, when my mother died. Okay, my mother died of cancer, which was very sad. She, having served the hospice for 20 years,
Wow.
helping cancer patients, she actually succumbed to that disease. Anyway,
I'm
after
sorry
she
to hear
died,
that.
my father was going through. No, no, thank you, thank you. Um, my father was going through her cupboards or going through their stuff
Mm.
because it kind of it it prompted him to do certain things with his life and just take possibly some different perspectives on things. So he was clearing out some cupboards, not clearing them out. He was going through cupboards. I think he was on a bit of a fact-finding mission himself. And he
Yeah.
came across the result of this aptitude test that I'd done. And he phoned me and he said, "Adrian, what are you doing in a family business?" I said, "What are you talking about, Dad? You flew to London and made me join it."
Yeah.
With a tongue in cheek, I'd never say that, but I said, "You flew there, you interviewed me, and you said it was a right fit, and it has been. It's been great." I said, "Why do you ask?" He says, "Because this aptitude test that Mum encouraged you to take said nothing about that." I said, "Well, what did it say?" It said creative writing, advertising,
Mm.
copywriting. I said, "Well, Dad, that's 100 miles away from what I've done." He said, "I know." I said, "Well, Dad, it's water under the bridge. I've enjoyed the industry and I still do. And
Yeah.
I was following steps and following in him and my sister's footsteps. She and I are 50-50 shareholders in the business." So I said,
Great.
"Find this out now. I wish maybe I'd done something a little bit more along those lines a longer time ago, but it is what it is." So
Yeah.
that niggle that I had is backed by 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 scientific research, if you can call it that. So I thought about that, and I thought, no wonder I've enjoyed writing, and no wonder when I watch an advert and I pick up the incorrect grammar, and it annoys me, and I'm that annoying person that corrects someone when I first meet them. That's annoying,
Yes,
but I
you did
can't help
that to me.
myself. Yeah, no, I can't help it. I view it as trying to help, like I'm
Yeah.
helping, I'm
Meanwhile.
improving. They look, how
Mm.
arrogant is this guy? Doesn't even know me. Can't remember my name, but he's just corrected my sentence. Anyway, it's a habit. So, so I've had this niggle, and now I think it's time to start exploring it.
Mm.
And yeah, it has made me think. Over the years, as my confidence has grown in the industry in wealth management, and as I've been able to engage with clients with larger assets and more affluent people, etc. And I'm not saying it makes them more important. It's all relative. But as I've gained the confidence to operate in the circles where you can secure a large corporate as a pension fund client, or a
Mm.
large individual, I've started to realize that it's the writing of the reports that I enjoy, and it's the engaging with the clients, in terms of speaking and speaking in front of audiences of 200, 300
Mm.
people at a corporate headquarters, which, as I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later, used to scare the dickens out of me. Look, it still does, but I'm just able to mask it a bit better. So over the
Yes.
years, I've been my focus, or my need to focus on the writing and the presenting, etc., has started to show itself. So the number
Mm.
crunching and the tax and financial needs analysis and all that stuff, it's definitely something that you can't do without. But it's something which, if in a perfect world, if I had the setup, I'd click my fingers and have a team produce all of that for me, and then I could go
Yes.
and do the talking, and the writing. I'd write the report based on their findings. I wouldn't have to do it myself. So the focus has moved away from the nuts and bolts financial planning to the engagement and the script writing, if you want to
Yeah.
call it.
And
Yeah.
that's your through speaking through life?
Yeah. So over the years, when I realized that, ironically, because I had a stutter as a child, and a horrible one. And I think once you, it's like an alcoholic. You never
Yeah.
quite beat it. You're always
Mm.
one, but you're able to sideline it. The
Of
stutter
course.
is
Yeah.
always there. And I always get nervous when I make a call to someone for the first time. I've got to silently rehearse it. Coming on this podcast today was a little bit of a worry for me. Not a worry. It was exciting, but it's
Yes.
daunting because I've got this little friend that's always been on my shoulder. It
Mm.
started when I was about 5, and it got slowly worse, and especially in high school when the pressure was on, with
Yeah.
exams and everything that goes with heading towards the upper ends of the last years of high school. So it was terrible. It just got worse and worse. And I was at an all boys school, a boarding school, fantastic school, which I loved. But
Mm.
you're at the mercy of teenage boys who,
Yeah. Which
who
can be brutal. Yeah.
when it comes to someone with a speech impediment. So the horrible thing was, well, I guess it was a double-edged sword. My teachers enjoyed what I had to say because they enjoyed writing and they enjoyed the content of oral and
Mm.
presentations. But my delivery, I could get through it, but it was hideous because I
Yeah.
would battle. But and I wouldn't say they wouldn't care. They certainly cared, but they did not want me to back down. They did not want to say,
Mm.
you get to do it a different way in a private room where it's just us and you don't have the first team front row sitting in front of the class, all like elbow jabbing each other, which is what they did. And it was
Yeah.
horrible. I remember the one time it was the parent teacher evening, and our school had just built a magnificent new auditorium which the school couldn't wait to show off. So my teacher said, right, we've picked 3 or 4 or 5 presentations from the matric year, from the final year, the year 12, and you guys are going to present it in the auditorium. I said to my teacher, I said, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to do that. You know why? And she said, well, that's probably why I do want you to do it. So,
Yeah.
so I had to sit up there and had to say it, etc. So I guess the points I'm making with all of this is that over time throughout my career, etc., even though I've had this horrible little buddy sitting on my shoulder, I have gravitated toward public speaking because I've had to do it. I've had to address large corporates. I'm the wealth manager. I'm the logical person to do that within our organization. So doing that, actually getting a little bit of a kick out of it, which seems a little bit sick because it scares me, etc. I think you get this rush when you've got it under control, and it usually doesn't take
Yeah.
too long to do that. Once you've stood up and you've introduced yourself, and you've read the room a bit, and you've managed to take a few breaths, you can get into it, and you're no longer focusing on yourself. You're actually focusing on what you're saying. And I actually thought this is actually quite nice. I'm enjoying having written the content and now saying it and getting awesome feedback, etc. So I thought maybe I can start focusing more of my job on that, and then maybe there's something else I can do, which is another huge story, which I'm sure we can get into. So if you're happy for me to just keep talking about the speak through life thing, I can do so, unless you've got a question you want to throw in.
I did. I do have a question, Adrian. I think, firstly, thank you for being brave and coming on the podcast. And one thing I love about what you've shared is that you continuously seem to just push yourself outside that comfort zone. You know, having a speech impediment can be a very hard thing to kind of, get control over. How did you manage to frame that in your mind, or because sometimes when we have got something like that, it can overtake us. Really, I'd love you to share. How did you manage to get in control? Get control of that?
Yeah, no, good question. People ask me, they say, if it was that bad, did you go for proper coaching and training, etc., etc.? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. In year 12, when it was kind of peaking because of all the pressure, I had exams, I had wretched speech in the auditorium, which went horribly, by the way. It was terrible. It was a disaster because I had to read a poem, and then my speech was about the poem, and I just fell apart during the poem. So it was awful. I would say, they say you got to get to your lowest points before you can start being
Climbing.
better. That was it. That was it. I mean, I'll never
Oh.
forget that. The guys in the front row were literally pointing and anyway, it was hideous. And
Oh
there
my
were parents
goodness.
there, so it was terrible. But after that, now I finished school. Now I'm in university, so I'm a much smaller fish in a pond. Yes, the pressure's there. You're writing exams, and it's a whole new way of life. But you're not in your final year of something. You're not writing the most important exams of your life. You don't have the second lead in the school play, which is another sick thing that I did. I thought, I've got to get control of this thing, so let's audition for the play. And I'm not embarrassed to say, but
Was it afterwards?
I don't have an awesome voice. I don't have a great voice, but I can hold a tune, and I'm not tone deaf. So in an all-boys school, it wasn't difficult for me to land quite a serious role in the play. So that was
Wow,
another
you're
thing that
brave.
really added to my pressure. But after that, it all fell away. So now
Yeah.
I'm in first year university, and I'm going, whoa, okay, now there's no more spotlight. I'm not standing on stage. I'm not writing my final exams. I don't have my first girlfriend anymore. These are all things that were just adding to my pressures and just making
Yeah, and your
life
stress.
more difficult. So
Mm.
before I knew it, the stutter had got a lot better without really having to do too much about it, which was amazing because I went
Yeah,
from
wow, that is.
a situation where it was almost possible to stand up in front of a crowd, especially because we had to do presentations in Afrikaans, being
Oh gosh,
the
yeah.
language we all had to that's
Mm.
English and French, because as a punishment, I took French. Maybe that was
As
a sort
well.
of a Freudian way for me to confront that head on, because speaking in French just amplified the insecurities tenfold. So all these things happened in my final year of school, and it all went away. And before I knew it, I was like, wow, I just told a joke, and
Yeah.
it was that kind of thing. So it was it just got easier without really having to engage in formal training, etc. My teachers would always try and help me. They each had their own tips of what they thought would work. I don't think they really did, but I'm glad they tried. So nothing formal, but it went away. But it never actually disappears. So even
Yeah, you just
now,
learn to manage
when
it.
I'm getting up and I'm presenting, it really frightens me. But I think
Mm,
that's quite normal when it comes to public speaking. I think
yes.
there's a saying that says, there's two types of public speakers. There are ones who get nervous, and the other ones are liars. That maybe
Yeah,
that's not quite true. I know there are natural
I'm
speakers
the
out there.
same. I can't deal. I can't deal.
No, no, look, and I mean, not many people can, and I shouldn't be able to, but I don't know. Maybe it's I enjoy without sounding like I'm trying to brag or like I think I'm cool, but I enjoy an audience. There's a certain, no, it's nice. You get this,
Yeah.
the feedback when you get back off an audience, you get this kind of, it's a real kick. So when I did my first conversations, one of which was in South Africa in a huge auditorium
Mm,
at Alan Gray's head office. Now, Alan Gray is a very well-known asset manager in South Africa. They've got a presence in Australia. Their head office
yeah.
in Cape Town is no joke. Very, very smart, plush venue, which seats about 300 people. And it was last year, September, that I got up and my story there. And afterwards, when all the nerves had settled, and I'd realized that I had done quite a reasonable job, it was an amazing feeling, and it was
Mm,
everything else was yeah.
yeah. And Adrian, we're stepping into more of the, I guess, public spotlight. Is the intention to share your story to inspire others? Because something that comes through from our conversation now is that consistency, like you just, like anything in life, you were just consistent and eventually you kind of, you embraced your fear and kind of moved past it. Is that the intention into moving into the space?
Yes, well, it's there's a few different aspects. I like the fact that I can do this in conjunction with my wealth management. Okay,
Mm,
and it's quite a there's quite a lot of detail behind that. But in a nutshell, when I've been keen to move to Australia for a long time because I am Australian. Okay, my
yes, I
father
wanted
was
to
born
touch
and
on that.
raised here. Yeah, which I'm sure we will do. So I've always had the ability to move over here because I've been a citizen here since the age of 12. I've had a passport. So we always had the ability to get over here and to get my wife and kids on a permanent residence, on a PR visa. So that was always
Yeah.
there as a long-term plan. But then when I realized, or when I started focusing more on something else, which we'll chat about, which is the fact that I'm an Indigenous Australian from
Yes, I wanted
a
to speak about that.
direct
Yes. Mm,
line on the side. Then I thought, well, I would like to move back to Australia for various reasons.
mm,
So your question was, what am I hoping to achieve with my presentation? My presentation has got a lot of different aspects to it. It's framed on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it speaks to being a better version of yourself by climbing that ladder, and how every time you get knocked down, you've just got to build on it and make yourself stronger to eventually get there. And it speaks about
yes, definitely.
disruption. That's probably the biggest sort of theme in the presentation. Disruption on a personal level, having a speech impediment. Disruption all the way through my ancestry, um, in terms of on the indigenous side and on my father's father's side, which is a direct. Was a direct descendant of a young British convict. So
Mm,
the disruption to some getting put on a ship, etc. So it talks about that, and it speaks about how now I'm overcoming my own disruptions by putting it in perspective. Everything you
yeah.
put it in perspective, and you think to yourself, how when I was 16, I went off to boarding school. To me, that was a huge deal. When
Mm,
I
of
was
course.
17, I'm on stage trying to talk, and that was that was a big deal. Like nothing was
Mm,
more important. But then you think, wow, but at the age of 16, my great, 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 great grandfather was put onto a convict ship and sent thousands of miles away from his home. So his
mm,
his pyramid of needs at the foundation, you've got your physiological needs, and then you've got your need to feel safe and your need to
yeah.
belong. All of those were shattered for this youngster. as, he was no longer safe. He'd lost a sense of belonging. His his physiology was in jeopardy. It's subject to terrible conditions, brutal beatings, and all this stuff. So you think of yourself, and you think, how
Yeah.
am I going to get over this?
Very.
Because wow, there are people in my past, there are people living now having to overcome far more severe challenges. And it's not to downplay challenges. They are real, and they're ours, and they're serious. But if you can put them in boxes and try and get over them one by one, and eventually try and get to the top of the pyramid, and I do get a fraction will get there, something like 1% will get to that sort of self-actualization. But we've just got to try. So in pursuing,
Sorry, I wanted to ask.
Breaking up.
I think there's just a little bit of a delay, but that's okay. I wanted to ask, do you mind to just quickly walk us through what that sort of hierarchy is in terms of the human needs?
Sure. Yes, I can. Okay, you're at the bottom of the pyramid. I think they're five. At the bottom is physiological needs. Okay, so you need to breathe, you need water, air, warmth, etc. Reproduction. Okay, without that, the species dies. You can't exist without it. So once you've got those sorted, you can breathe, you've got food and water and shelter, etc. Then you've got to be safe. Okay. So once you're safe, you've got a house, you've got the security of warmth and a family, etc. You can tick that off. Okay. So once you've got physiological and safety, then you move up to belongingness. So now once you've got those ticked off, you've got to belong. You've got to feel like you're part of a group, a family unit. Okay. Everyone yearns for a sense of belongingness. Not everyone. Some people like to be recluses, but you need to feel that if you want to could belong. It's very important. And once you've got belonging ticked off, then it's self-esteem. Okay. So you've got to start working on yourself, because now you've got everything else in place. You're secure enough to be able to work on the more sort of metaphysical things. Okay. So self-esteem, very, very important. Once you've got that ticked off, which some people don't, some people struggle. I think we all do to a certain extent. I think I do. I do definitely do. The stutter was a huge thing. And maybe even joining the family business was another thing. I just felt like self-esteem wise, I got to join the family business. I've got to fit in, gel. My sister was successful. My dad had made a good business. Now I must be put in there, build myself up, etc. Show that I can do it. Which to be honest, I have, but there's something else I don't want to do. And just to touch on that on self-esteem, maybe this speaking through life thing as my own initiative, maybe that's why I'm looking to pursue it as well. Because as much as I enjoy it, and I've got a lovely story to tell through our family structure, the fact that I'm Indigenous and proud of it, and all the story that goes with that, maybe I've always been longing for my own initiative, something that I can build up and succeed with, because the family business wasn't handed to us. The infrastructure was there, and it was easy, not easy. Nothing's been easy, but it was a logical thing to scale. You can scale that upwards. Once I was there, and once we started building staff numbers, etc., we could scale the business to where it is today. But that was always something that was, the foundations had been laid. My dad had been building it up for 25, 30 years already. My sister had been in the business for 5 years. So it was there, and it was mine for the taking, mine to join and to help grow. But it wasn't mine. You know what I'm saying? It was my dad.
I do.
And it was my sister's. And I'm just a piece. Whereas this thing, it's my idea. It's my story. It's my challenge. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why it slots right into the self-esteem. Okay. Now, once self-esteem is taken care of, then you can work on self-actualization, which is right at the top, which not many people get to. Okay. And that's being the best version of yourself. So does it mean success? I don't know. Does it mean just being holistically as happy as you could ever be? Maybe it's got to do with that. It's very, very subjective, but that's right at the top. And I'm nowhere near that. I don't know too many people who are, but I know a lot of people who are trying to get there.
And what does that look like for you, being the best version of yourself?
Being the best version of myself. Gosh, now that's a question. I think the best version of myself would be, it's very interesting because I was actually speaking to my brother-in-law, Justin, who you
Yeah.
met. And I said to him
Yeah.
the other day, I said, because, like you see a lot of people driving nice cars and living in nice houses, etc. And I've always
Mm.
been not materialistic, but I've always known what the finer things in life are. And I've enjoyed
Yeah.
either seeing them or knowing about them or maybe having one or two myself. But
Yeah.
just of late, and I'm talking in the last year, I love it when someone's got a nice car, and if someone does, then I'll stop them and I say, mate, that's an awesome car, or that's a sick
Yeah.
motorbike. Like I love nice things, but would I rush out and sell my family mover, which is a Mitsubishi
Mm.
Outlander, which I love? Would I sell that and buy um, a fully tricked out Land Cruiser if I could? And I don't think I would.
Mm.
I don't think I would because a couple of years ago, very recently, I would have. That would have been me if I had the money and I could support it. I would do it. But now, I don't think that's the best version of myself. The best version of myself right now would be genuinely having job job satisfaction. And when I say job
Mhm.
satisfaction, I don't mean I do get satisfaction out of what I do, of helping people achieve their financial goals and being sincere about it. There's an element of satisfaction there,
Yeah.
but it's not the satisfaction that I'm looking for. I'm looking to make this initiative work for me. I'm looking forward to being genuinely excited about my next public speaking engagement and having that excitement filter through to my family, etc. That to me would
Yes.
be pretty close to the best version of myself if I'm genuinely excited about what I'm about to do that day. And it's going to take a while because the initiative is very young.
Mm.
My family's only been here for not even 2 years, and we're having to deal with all of that at the moment. So I'm a
Yeah.
long
Which
way
is
away.
hectic.
But if
Mm.
I can tick this rather large box of being able to use something in the creative space, my own initiative in the creative space, and turn that into a form of income and a way to support my family in my own way, then I'd be a lot closer.
Yeah, and I guess the beauty of that is that you'd be actually serving everyone else in the process as well, through sharing your story and putting yourself out in the spotlight as well.
100%. 100%. That's the thing. I think succeeding in business is about being sincere about what you do
Mm.
and having
Yeah.
real care for your customer. And it sounds
Mm.
pretty trite, not.
No, it's
If you
not.
if you
Mm-mm.
genuinely care about your customer, and I'm not talking about paying them lip service, if you are genuinely invested in their well-being and what they're going to gain from your product or what you've got to say, then you will succeed. I honestly believe that. And
Mm.
it was just a one-liner that I read once, but it resonated. In fact, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Mm.
Don't sit across the table and act like you care about someone when you don't, because you're not going to put the
Yeah.
effort in. They're not
No,
going to
and it
mean
comes
too much to you.
across. Mm.
It does. It does. And if you're a really slick talker, the client's going to buy it. They're going to say, "Oh, no, this guy's got my best intentions." I mean, in my profession of wealth management, you've got to sign it's an oath. It's like the doctor's sort of Hippocratic oath,
Yeah.
which says you've got to give the kind of advice that you'd give yourself, which we
Mm.
always do. You can do that, no problem. But are you really sincere about wanting to help this client? That goes above and beyond that oath. So I think,
Mm.
like my sister, I'm not saying I'm insincere, not at all, but she if you put us together, like if she was on this podcast, it would run for 3 hours because she'd want to find out about you, and she can
Oh,
talk the hind leg of donkey. It's what she is. She's my father's daughter, and the two of them, I can't get a word in. But anyway,
yeah.
she will sit with the client and know everything about them, and she'll take her
Mm,
work home with her and be able to sleep that night because something's bugging her. I
yeah.
mean, she's actually saved people's lives by uncovering health issues whilst doing her needs analysis. Like she said,
Wow.
no, there's something. Yeah, you need to go and see X, Y, and Z. Client found out that she was borderline, like almost in a heart attack territory. In fact, I think she had one, but she wouldn't have
Wow.
known if my sister hadn't pushed so hard to get her to take it seriously. So
Yeah.
she's right up there in terms of level of sincerity, etc. And it really
And
comes
level
through
of
in
care.
what she does. I think while
Mm,
Canada is a little bit colder, it's not as kind of uh, when you're talking to someone about their health, etc., or you're talking to someone about their money, the money's not quite as personal. So she gets to
mm,
know a lot more about her client, but picks it her business to do so, and she's extremely sincere. And I
yes.
and I always give her a hard time because I say you talk too much. The client does not need a box of chocolates. They don't need flowers. What are you doing? They're going to expect it from you. She
Oh,
says, but they love it. I said, of course
yeah.
they love it. So everyone loves it. I'd love a box of chocolates, but I don't do that for my clients. But to her, that's not a chore. She wants to do it, and they
It's an
love
extra
her
level
for
of
it.
care. Mm,
It is,
definitely.
and they know that.
Yes.
I mean, our
Yeah.
company's tagline or our payoff line is "We look after you," and that's her. That's what she does.
Mm, it's great
I
that she
look after my
embodies that.
clients. Yeah, no, I'll do what I need to do so that I don't make mistakes, and I help them build assets, etc. She will really, really look after them. That they become
Yeah.
friends. So it's just the
Mm,
difference between the two of us. But yeah, she's pretty close to a self-actualization in her own kind of way. Um,
yeah.
but as I've branched off and I'm trying to explore a um, totally different initiative in a totally different
Mm,
industry in a totally different country, I've been
yes.
bumped down a bit. I mean, think about it. My self-esteem, which was already not that high, is now worse because I'm trying to reach out to people who are just stonewalling me, and my
Mm,
sense of belonging is taken a pounding because I don't belong here yet. Although if you look at my family history, I might belong here more than a lot of people because you know my grandmother and my father being indigenous, this is probably
yes.
it's probably I might have more right to be here than others if you look at it like that. But
Mm,
um, but right now I'm in a new country, and I
yeah.
don't really. I'm an outsider, so my pyramid's taken a bit of a caning since I got here, but I'm building it up
Mm,
slowly.
that's great. And Adrian, so ancestry, the thing I love about our ancestors and reflecting on all the different things that they did, what I often love to think about, if they had done one thing differently, like you and I potentially wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So, like you said, one of
Yeah,
your
of course.
ancestors was on a ship and got convict shipped and got shipped out, and a few of my ancestors from Greece and Italy and Germany and all over the show, like if one like date hadn't occurred or if they hadn't met each other and all that divine timing has led us to having this conversation. So walk us through
100%.
your ancestry.
Okay. As I said, on my father's side, he's a
Mm,
direct descendant of a young convict who probably stole a loaf of bread. It was at the time of the first
yeah.
industrial revolution. I won't turn this into a history lesson, but the prisons in the UK were very crowded, and there was a lot of crime because the industrial revolution, although it created jobs, it also stripped a lot of people of their jobs
Mm.
because machines were now taking their place. So at least what we're
Mm,
going on, what we're going through here with AI. But anyway,
yeah.
crime was rife, prisons were overcrowded, so they had to be sent somewhere else. So they were put on convict ships to come and colonize Australia. I think we all know that. So
Mm,
he arrived on a ship, part of the third fleet to arrive. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, when the ship sailed past, up the coast of New South Wales to Botany Bay, where Captain Cook landed, etc., the first indigenous tribe that they saw were called the Budawang people on
mm,
on the south coast of South Wales. So Captain Cook and his guys and all the others, the first Aboriginal people they saw were the Budawang people, who were our people. Okay, so William Fuller, my great whatever he was in the 1700s, the first he saw the Budawang people. Okay, that was the first encounter between the settlers and the indigenous inhabitants. And then 200 odd years later, when a descendant of the Budawang tribe married a descendant of William Fuller, those paths reconverged. So you're saying, like, coincidence and whatever, it's things that lead to a or a meet. That was fascinating because the two cultures saw each other back then. Hundreds of years they reconverged when my grandparents got married, and it's a fascinating story. I mean, it was actually an African American sailor who he was shipwrecked off the coast of New South Wales. Okay, the local Budawang men, they saw that this ship was going down, and they formed a human chain, okay, to rescue the guys on this boat.
Yeah.
Okay, guys they'd never met, obviously. So they rescued these people, one of whom was a descendant of mine who joined the Budawang. So a native, an African American sailor, by getting saved by members of the Budawang tribe, joined the tribe. Okay, married one of their ladies. Okay, so my ancestry started from there, joined the Budawang tribe. Hundreds of years later, their descendant married the descendant of William Fuller. Okay, so all the stuff is sort of interwoven, and it's a very nice narrative of disruption. Like, I mean, disruption. There was a shipwreck, but the guy was saved by the Budawang people. That's how he got into the tribe. So there were all these moments, all these hardships that were endured, which brought us to where we are now. So we've got through my sort of, if I can call it a dual heritage or a dual lineage, I'm able to tell this with no bias. There's no bias. I'm not standing up and I'm talking about how terrible it was, what happened, etc. I'm not focusing on that, because I'm saying, guys, I descend from both sides. I'm from the settlers and from the indigenous people. So I'm speaking from a balanced perspective, and I'm just telling a story. It's not a political story at all. I'm just saying this was a story of my past, married up with a story of my personal past, and also a very, very important part of my story. And this is very true. Having got to Australia and now being in the country where I can do some real research into my story, okay, I can get sort of under its skin. I engage the services of a cultural consultancy based in Darwin. And I spoke to a guy, I had a team guy, and I said, listen, I'm writing the story about my history, and more specifically about my father, because my father has been very, very misunderstood. For as long as I've known him, we haven't understood what makes him tick, because he's 82 this year, but he can't sit still. All he do is travel and achieve things and blah, blah, blah. And it drives us mad, because he's trying to get to self-actualization far harder than anyone else is. And I thought to myself, why is that? Why is he like this? Why is it never enough? He's very successful, and he's 82. He should be putting his feet up and just chilling and enjoying the fruits of his labor, which he does do to a certain extent, but always on the go, always wanting to travel and enter into business deals, etc. And I said to this cultural consultant, I said, what's going on? And he said to me, did your dad know that he was indigenous? Like, did he grow up in the knowledge? I said, no. He only found out about 20 years ago, which is when we found out. And I said to the guy, I said, you hear about the intergenerational trauma that is suffered by people who are removed from their cultural heritage, the lost generations, etc. I said, my dad wasn't a victim of lost generations, of stolen generations at all, and it wasn't in his direct sort of lineage either. But could the denial of my father's ancestry, could the denial of his heritage have caused him some sort of conflict? And the guy said, absolutely. He said, you can delve really deep into this and understand your dad's restlessness, because it's a lack of identity where when he
Yeah.
was growing up, the what was happening around him was very real and very in your face, but he
Mm.
didn't know that it affected him closer than he thought. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't know
Yeah.
that he was in. Yes, but when I studied psychology, I always enjoyed Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud and Carl
Okay.
Jung were my two favorite psychologists. And Freud is
Yeah.
all about unconscious and
Mm.
unresolved conflict.
Fascinating.
And
Mm.
when I apply that to removing an indigenous person from such a rich culture,
Mm.
it's very, very true. Freud says, of course, it's a source of conflict. Of course, there has to be some sort of resolution. And this comes back to this niggle that I've had, which has got stronger over the years. And I don't want to get too philosophical or act
Okay.
as if I'm such a fundi when it comes to Freud, because I'm not. I mean, a 3-year degree doesn't qualify
Yeah.
you as that. But there was something about Australia. Once I found out about my heritage, I
Mm.
thought to myself, like something started burning, like something was burning. I thought to myself, well, since I got here and I engaged with the cultural consultant and the light bulb went off, and I said, that's why Dad can't sit still. You know, how's the irony of this? A man who doesn't know that he's indigenous, an
Yeah.
indigenous Australian, settles in South Africa at the height of apartheid. Okay,
Mm.
and Freud didn't say your dad did know. You know, almost at a genetic level, there could have been
Mm.
something, some way that, or some reason why he always felt comfortable going to a place in Sydney called La Perouse, which was a lot of Aboriginal kids would play, and there was a meeting ground, and he'd throw boomerangs with these guys, and he loved it
Yeah.
there. Why did he enjoy it so much? And Freud would say he knew deep down. So when he moved
Mm.
to South Africa, Freud would say now he's in the heart of a country which is just at the mercy of brutal racial segregation.
Yeah.
And that would have compelled my dad to plant his flag, to make his identity and to build a business. And that might be why he just can't sit still. And now I thought to myself, and I'm getting really philosophical,
It's
but if
okay.
I'm
I love it.
having moved back to Australia, and I believe this, and this is me being sincere, me moving back to
Yeah.
Australia is resolving my father's own conflict, because I'm bringing
Mm.
him back home. Okay, my uncle
Yeah.
Noel Butler, my elder in New South Wales, there's a quote of his. He says, "If you know where you are, if you know who you are, and where you will forever find your way home." Okay, and he
Mm.
draws a parallel
Yeah, I love
with
that.
that and the turtle that swims 1,000 kilometers back to its birthplace to reproduce, etc. It's all about knowing where you come from. So the
Mm.
story, my public speech, my motivational speech, is all about finding your way home. Okay, and in
Yeah.
doing so, possibly becoming the best version of yourself. Because without that, you don't feel grounded. The base of your
Mm.
pyramid is unstable. So I'm resolving my father's conflict by bringing him home and reconnecting him, because he's too old
Mm.
now to do that. As ethic as he is for traveling, etc., he doesn't want to move
Yes.
back here. He's built his life there. But I'm saying, don't worry,
Mm.
Dad. I'm proxy here. I'm
Yeah.
bring, having learned that from the cultural consultants and having visited with my elder and getting the context from him about the turtle, etc.
Mm.
Why didn't he speak about the turtle right away? Like, I don't know. But it was so profound, and I thought, now I've got a story, because before that, I had certain chapters, but I didn't know how to string them together. I didn't know
Mm.
where to go. And I thought, my gosh, this is great, because I'm resolving plenty conflict. My father's conflict. It's the conflict of our family, um, the indigenous lineage, etc., etc. It was always kept hush hush for whatever reason. I never got to speak to my gran about it. Um, and my own thing, like, uh, something's been missing. Something is missing,
Mm.
and I'm gonna put it all to bed. Hopefully,
Yeah, that's great, Adrian. And it's funny, as you are speaking, yeah, I'm kind of just resonating on my heritage. So I've got Greek and Italian from my dad's side. Then mom's side, I've got German and Dutch, and Irish as well. I'm a bit of a mix. That it was
Sure.
interesting when I went to Greece and when I went to Ireland, it's this funny, like, sense of belonging. I mean, I'd never been there obviously before, but I guess,
Yeah.
like, from what you said, you're going back to it's in your blood, it's like that, your ancestors obviously coming from there, and it's like a weird sense of feeling at
Yeah.
home, and like I said, as you're speaking, I'm kind of reflecting on that, so it's powerful.
Sorry, you froze a bit there.
Oh, that's okay. I just was saying that I was, reflecting on that. It's really powerful what you shared about your ancestors and how, they've sort of, impacted one. Right. Adrian, so I've heard you writing a book. I would love to know more.
Yeah, look, the book is essentially a book length, or a book version of my speech, really, because
Mm,
there's so much sort of content there that I would love to elaborate on. And it's a story of of my dad. Okay, it's all framed on my journey back to New South Wales to meet my elder. So as I'm making that trip over there, everything is sparking memories about my childhood. And the nice thing about it, through writing this thing, I couldn't do so without input from my father. And I'm
mm.
learning so much about him, and he's loving the exercise because every time he emails
Oh,
me
great.
content, he feels like, wow, he'd forgot, he hasn't thought about that in 40 years, and he's enjoying this. And it's quite strange now, at the age of nearly 50, I'm learning more about my dad than I've ever known.
So
And it's
cool.
really helping me to feel like those ideas I have about Freud and conflict, etc. They're not just they're not just ideas of mine. They are backed up. They really are. They're real. One thing I learned, our people, the Budawang people, are called freshwater and saltwater people. That's kind of what they're called. And
Okay.
I said to my dad, Dad, have you ever wondered why you love boats so much and you love the water? Like
Mm,
he's always wanted to live on a waterway. He said if he wasn't living where he lives in South Africa, it would be in Sydney, the greater Sydney area, on those beautiful waterways that they have so
like
many of over
Canyoneer.
there.
Mm.
That would be his dream, because he's loved owning yachts, speedboats, fishing, houseboats, anything to do with
Mm.
water. And I said to Dad, you know what? When I can't sleep at night, I always think about water, and it makes me feel better. I said, Dad, do you know that our Budawang people are called fresh and saltwater people? And my dad is the
Mm.
least metaphysical person on earth. He's like, if something can't be scientifically proven, don't even go there. But it's made him stop and think. He thought, wow, that's a coincidence. I said, well, maybe it's
Mm.
not. As I'm writing this book about his journey and my journey on the back of his to come back to Australia, I'm uncovering these things which are only heightening the authenticity of it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not like I'm
great,
writing
Adrian.
something to get published. The idea to write it was to hopefully get it published one day and then lend some
Mm.
credibility to public speaking. Because right now, people don't know who I am. Hopefully, they'll know a
Yeah.
little bit more after today's podcast, but
Yeah, of
they don't really
course.
know who I am, and I don't have any credibility. If I've got a book to back it up, that's awesome. But when I first started writing it, that was the motive. Now that I'm
Mm.
writing it and I'm seeing, oh, there's real stuff in here, I'm finding it so fascinating.
It sounds like it's been a really, profound journey for you as well, which is great.
No, it really has. It's been an authentic journey and an exciting one. Very exciting.
Yeah. Adrian, I'd love to know what would be your, I guess, one line of wisdom for someone who is playing it safe and deep down they know that they're playing it safe, but they haven't called themselves out on it. What would be your
Yeah.
your piece of advice to them?
I actually posted something on LinkedIn a few days ago. I had a biology teacher in school, Mr.
Mm,
Griffiths. I once had a small, I used to write blogs, and one of the blogs was about Mr. Griffiths because he was the most
mm.
amazing teacher. I won't talk too much about him, but he never gave us homework ever. But he never
Oh,
told us
sounds
when
like
a
a
test
great
was coming.
teacher.
So your homework was to revise every day because you never knew when a test was coming. So that was amazing.
Right.
And it made me remember everything he said. And he said to
Mm,
me once in our class, he actually had a poster of it. He said, behold the turtle. It makes progress only when it sticks its neck out. Okay.
mm.
And that's amazing because you've got to feel insecure. You've got to feel
Yeah.
vulnerable. Always got to be in that space that makes you wonder what the what the hell you're doing there. Without that, you don't grow. Those
No.
those certificates on the wall behind me are from
Yes.
karate grading. Now, I'm not
Right.
naturally aggressive. I'm not a natural fighter.
Yeah.
Um, at the age of 30, I took the discipline up again after having studied it as a child.
Mm.
But I'd be standing on the edge of the tatami, which is the sort of the mat, a competition mat in Johannesburg in the dead of winter in a huge it's called the Standard Bank Arena or the Ellis
Oh,
Park
yeah, I
Arena. Big,
remember.
cold,
Mm.
uh, daunting, very intimidating. And I'm about 35 years old. I think to myself, why am I standing on the side of the tatami, staring across at a 6'4" guy who wants to take my head off? And I said to myself, because that's how you grow. That's how you
Mm.
learn about yourself. I would
Yes.
much rather have been home with a cup of coffee. That would have been better on a Saturday morning. But I wasn't. I was standing there trembling in my boots while the guy
Yes.
across the floor couldn't wait to eat me alive. So I thought
Wow.
that's why I'm here. And the fact
Mm.
that I can ask these questions just makes me real, you know,
Yes.
because I'm vulnerable and I'm scared. I'm out of place here. But once I do this, I'm gonna feel better about things. So you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta put yourself on that freezing cold karate mat on a Saturday morning
Yeah.
to find out who you are and where you can go.
Thank you for sharing that. And I was just thinking about the turtle and sticking your neck out. From my experience, sometimes you stick your neck out and you get decapitated, but you can always glue it back on. So and you always
100%.
you're a stronger turtle afterwards.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it was quite strange, when I went to visit Uncle Noel in New South Wales, my
Mm.
my story was already called Maslow and the Turtle because it was called the
Oh,
turtle because
I
of Mr.
see.
Griffith's the turtle. Then when Uncle
Mm.
Noel, the story he told me was of a turtle, I thought, hey, the universe is like aligning here.
Yeah. Spirit animal? Have you read about it potentially being your spirit animal or what the
No, I
symbolism
haven't.
of a
I
turtle
haven't actually.
means? Oh, read it. It's fascinating. Like sometimes I'll see an
Okay.
animal. I mean, I'm a bit out there. Like we had a cockatoo in our garden. Shem, this poor thing, I think had a fight over a lady or it had flown into the wall, but it broke its neck. And Shem, we got it in its last moments. Poor little guy. But then I actually looked up the symbolism of a cockatoo, and for where my life is at, it was just so like profound. So yeah, I would definitely look it up. I'd actually be interested to see what it means, because sometimes it's animal symbolism and what it sort of means for us in that point in our lives. So yeah, check it out.
I know, 100%. I'd love to get a
Yeah.
big turtle tattooed, but I've got 2
I
sleeves and
actually
I've
was
run
going
out
to
of real
ask.
estate. Yeah, no, I can't. My wife, my wife,
Oh,
she does not like tattoos, so it was always a tall order to ask for more. She said, "Once your sleeves are done, you're out of space." So
oh no, she'll have to get one for you.
yeah, unless I try and convince her about a leg piece or something, but that'll be a bridge too far. So anyway,
Oh,
I'll check
Adrian,
it
thank
out.
you
I'll
so
look
much.
it up.
Yes,
No, thank
definitely
you.
have a
Thank you
look.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for the time. And before you jump off, where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
Um, Probably LinkedIn. LinkedIn right now
Okay.
would be the best. That's where I'm the sort of most active. I'm still trying to build up my other profiles. So I do have a website with an inquiry page. I just find LinkedIn is easier. I'm kind of more active on there, and I post more. That's where my focus is. So please do. Anyone
Cool.
who's keen to ask me a question or engage, or maybe even hire me for a corporate function, my story lends
Yes.
itself to just about anything, school events, corporate things, anything like that. So I'd love to talk to you guys.
Definitely. So we'll be sure to pop your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well. Adrian, thank you so much for today. Thank you for being brave and putting yourself out there and for leading the way for those that, are nervous to step outside their comfort zone. Always great to chat with you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your good work, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Only a pleasure. Take care.